Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. You are in for a treat tonight. I am honored to have as my guest tonight State Representative Barbara Cooper from the state of Tennessee, the 86th District, a woman who knows Memphis backwards and forwards. She is a piece of living history in Memphis, Tennessee. State Representative Cooper, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be around you any way I can,
Oh,
even
you're
though
so
you're in
sweet.
Florida. Huh?
You're so sweet.
Yeah, it is.
State Representative Cooper, 92 years old, not looking like you're ready to stop, not acting like you're ready to quit, still serving in the state legislature, and having to run every 2 years. There are people who are going, oh my goodness, to have to run a campaign one or two times, but for 24 years, is 24 terms or 24 years?
It's really what's a half of 24? Will it be 12
12.
terms?
So you've run 12 terms.
And that's every 2 years.
Yeah.
Make
State
two.
Rep, yeah. You are still working on efforts for people to understand why voting is so important. Um, your parents, you remember your parents having to pay to vote. It was called a poll tax. And they didn't end the poll tax. I don't think people understand. They didn't end the poll tax in Memphis, Tennessee till 1953. Then, just 15 years later, Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. What were those years like? There was the sanitation workers strike. You were teaching. You were dealing with segregation, then integration. Am I asking too much at one time?
That's quite a mouthful, I tell you, because during that time, I was hired as a teacher, and I graduated from TSU in 50. So I was hired as a teacher that fall. And we did have a lot going on as far as not having the right to vote. Everything was segregated. Schools were segregated. Go back to those books that we had in the classroom. Children used books from other schools. Basically, they were European American schools, and we received our books from them when they used them. So they were already outdated when we received them. There was just a lot going on during the segregated times. We couldn't go to the same bathrooms. Still weren't able to do that. I was in a segregated school for about 10 years before we became what we call integrated. So I taught African American children and worked with African American parents. Then that busing came along to integrate the schools. That was kind of like 1970,
Mm-hmm.
around that time. And we had busing. They had created this busing. We thought it was going to really make us better. We were going to get better books. We were going to get new books. We were going to have to take the leftovers to be to be educated, learn how to read. We could go into the stores and try on. I think that was during the time when we couldn't go try on our clothes that we wanted to choose if we were purchasing some shoes or some dresses or pants or whatever. So it was clearly segregated, and that's during that time when they opened the schools up to be integrated busing. We had that opportunity to go in. We couldn't try on a hat uh, in a store. I can remember as a little girl, I could even go back to look at those two faucets that were side to side. One said white, one said black. Other bathrooms that says one white, one black. So it was kind of a trying time, but we had our own fun. As my mom used to say, stay in your place. But she taught us early on how to stay in our place, and that's how I was be able to manage to go through all of that. Well, down in 1946, I was given a scholarship to go to Tennessee State. I graduated in 50, and like I said, I was just coming home, and I got hired as an elementary teacher. So during that time, we just played in our neighborhoods. If and in the neighborhoods where we were, we had our own groceries mostly, and our own barber shops, and our own furniture store. So we really didn't mix a lot with other people. It was just among our own community, and we built on our community. Went to our churches, we had our own church, and mostly we went to church in our neighborhoods too. So it was we just didn't know any other life, and we enjoyed ourselves. We played together, we worked together, we went to church together, we did everything together. So when integration comes along, we all get start shopping at other stores, and a lot of our African American stores, our businesses in our neighborhoods were closed, and they weren't able to survive during integration. Same thing with busing. We thought that we were going to be doing real good with some new books uh, and knew everything, at least current information. But we did a lot of current issues of magazines and all the supplement for those old books that we had in our schools. We went to hospitals, but we weren't able to have really for a long time we only had just the black teachers, not to say segregation. But when we integrated, we did receive some white teachers. I guess we thought we were going to do better. And then by us being together, we didn't know any better to think that really European American people were superior to us, and that we were always uh, referred to, treated as we were inferior until we integrated. That's one thing it let us know that there's a lot of European American done. It's not just when you have a struggling trying to learn how to read or write it's not only European African American children, but we learned that because we always thought that we were inferior
So
because
you thought when you started teaching white children or white teachers came to teach with you that they were just automatically going to be smarter. And you said you
yeah,
learned that some of them were dumb too.
they were worse. We had some smart children. So, and it made me think
That's
about the
funny.
lottery, the lottery, because when we created a lottery from our congressman now that we have in the state, and we thought that it was going to be equal for everybody, and it was. But we, for some reason, our children, in doing that integration, could not keep up with the lottery scholarship. Only those African American children who was naturally what we call naturally smart, they have maintained those scholarships. Some of them did stay in because they did not have the finances to look the way they want to look on a campus, or to have the personal needs that they need on the campus. There are some other things you need other than just a smart mind. Now, some children, young people who were on campus, would stay even though they would just go with what they had and made it. So they were able to come out to be teachers and doctors and lawyers. Not a lot, but we were able to make it through because they had the tenacity to just stick it out, regardless of what the families had. And that the families were poor, couldn't come to see them. They couldn't go home, or we couldn't go home sometimes.
From college.
From college, like
Mhm.
on holidays, Thanksgiving. Maybe we come home for Christmas, and that's it. We have to stay on that campus until summertime.
And now kids think they're supposed to drive a car to campus, huh?
Oh yeah, they can drive a car back and forth every day, every week. They
State
run.
representative, as you talk about what you thought was going to happen as schools desegregated, when you look fast forward to 2021, this when the schools were segregated to where we are now with the education for African American children, when you look at that, what's your assessment of the progress or lack of progress?
I think that we are slowing down with the progress. And I was thinking as you were talking and asking the question, is that we're still being fooled by our politicians. And I know they want me to tell it, but I'm gonna have to tell it just like I feel and just like I know that it's happening. And takes me back as an example. Why did all of our, not all, but some of our top leaders, African Americans, buy into giving away the Memphis City Schools charter? There were only 13 in the state of special, what they call special school districts,
Hmm.
and Memphis City Schools was one of them. We were getting money from the city, funding for those schools, although sometimes we had to go down and beg for it. And we were getting money from the state, and they chose to just give up the child. And these were legislators supporting that, and county commissioners, and the city council mayor was African American. He said, "Never shall forget this one because it stuck with me. We are not in the education business. Well, if African Americans were not in the business of education, city council, county commissioners, and state representatives, what are we in? Because if I hadn't been able to have the opportunity to go to Tennessee State or Tennessee College, a lot of us wouldn't have made it where we are now. So that moved me to the middle class, and I was able to struggle on through, except when my husband got fired from the fire department, of course. That took me on back to the poverty line. But we made it on through with God's help and guidance and all. We made it back because he was able to get to return back to work, and because we were living on two salaries, and natural when you lose a salary, you know what kind of problem you're gonna have. And then during that time, it's still uh, integration was not here. You know, there was still that racism going on. So with him getting fired, it was we had to go through the Supreme Court to get his job back. So that
Well,
was
we'll
like
talk about
two
that.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of brought that up yesterday.
So your husband, Mr. Cooper, was among a group of 10 African American men who integrated the Memphis Fire Department.
Yes, right after they integrated the police department. But they had certain duties and responsibilities. Some things they couldn't do. For an example, they were not able to put out anybody go to a home that was burning if it was European American home. They could only go to the African American homes to put out fires. Is that
They
crazy?
couldn't put out fires at white people's houses.
No, for a time. No. Now I can remember one scenario. Well, I guess a couple of that I would like. One I better tell you about when they hired those black fire. Of course, it was 12 in the beginning, but two left early, so they left 10. I right there, Mississippi and Crump. They were all in one firehouse. They could integrate the firemen. What they had was like apartheid. They had a European American captain and a European American lieutenant that was running that firehouse with all African Americans in that one firehouse.
So even though the fire department was integrated, but it was segregated because the black firefighters all stayed in one firehouse
One firehouse, right?
and they couldn't put out fires had a color.
No, you're right.
If it was a white house, black firefighters could not spray water
No,
on the house of a white person.
no, ma'am. Now that's exactly, and that soon ended when the NAACP was involved. They didn't even. My husband became a captain. He was not even promoted. He was a private for 21 years. He so they were privates. They couldn't even make promotions. So we had to file a lawsuit to get those promotions. First, we filed a lawsuit to even get them in the one house, and they had all kind of races. Uh, had to go through all kind. You know, he had to bring some of that stuff home. A lot of it. My husband, I don't know how much I can think about now back on how I could have been a better wife, because he was going through some of that in that firehouse with those uh, European American captains and lieutenants over them. They were the boss over them, just like they were enslaved. Uh, it was something.
Hmm.
But I can't remember the year, but they integrated within NAACP's house when the integration came. And they put what they did was they divided those 10 firemen and assigned them each to a firehouse with other firemen having to sleep in the bunks, slide down the poles. They still had European American captains and lieutenants running the house. And they were integrated with the others. So, you know, they sleeping up there on the bunks together with her. And so they had to go through something with that because, like, African American men were not, um, they were not familiar with the European American style of living. So they had to learn how to live together.
I think, and Representative Cooper, my guest tonight, State Representative Barbara Cooper, 92 years young. And I'm so happy that you're able to share firsthand these stories because I think we have taken so much for granted. And that's why we don't appreciate what the struggle has been. And we're slipping back into some of the same things that were happening in 1953 when Black people were still having to pay to vote. And you say it's hard to understand what your husband was going through, but not only your husband, you were going through as well.
Uh, of course. And that kept us a little bit. I didn't ever know what was wrong with him. And he tried to keep the home together and not bring all of that with him. He didn't share everything with me. There was one story after he died that was quoted in the commercial appeal in the daily newspaper. When they were first hired, they were called to a fire down near the Foot Homes, and they've changed that to another name. But Foot Homes in the projects. And when they left going down to the fire, police stopped them. They stopped them and they wanted to know what they're doing sitting in a fire truck.
What?
They called in through the internet all across the city. Some niggas have stolen the fire truck. Now that's a newspaper. It's a commercial appeal. I have an article on that. That's the truth. You just wouldn't remember all of the things. You just wouldn't believe all the things that we had to go as we grew up. That's why we stayed in our own neighborhoods and we just enjoyed each other.
So the Black men that were hired to work for the Memphis Fire Department on their way to a fire, and the police pull them over and they radio in and say some niggas have stolen a fire truck.
Yes. They didn't know. They had been hired. They didn't know that they had African American firemen. And then and even that before they had to
but they had on their uniforms too. I mean, they had their fire gear on.
Like the fire clothes, they wear those khakis with the white T-shirts with the straps. You know how they do going to a fire.
Right.
But they would wear that uniform, dress uniform was navy blue and with the badges and all that when they do special things. But even with let me tell you this about the police. The police were assigned to Beale Street. They couldn't arrest any white folk when they were hired as policemen.
The Black policemen.
Right. These are the policemen.
When they hired Black policemen in Memphis, Black policemen couldn't arrest white people.
No. But what happened is later on, there was a fire and they were called to it. And because they go into usually don't go out of their territory. They're assigned to certain territories anyway. But this was a European American's home and had to go upstairs. And this lady had on a negligee with the fire department. My husband just kept going to put out the fire. And when he got back, and I don't know, the European Americans, I'm trying to remember exactly how they acted. They didn't want him going, seeing this European American was in her negligee or gown or whatever it is she had on. Now, he never told me that until later, way later. So when he got back to the fire station, the captain told my husband to catch the phone. So somebody always had to be there to catch those phones. And he carried all of those European American firemen upstairs and blessed them out. And my husband knew, he said he knew that he was going home again. I promised if he get fired again, I was going to leave him. And he was just praying, Lord, don't let me get fired. He told me that. But he blessed them out and told them they didn't do their job and whatever. And then let him come back down. He was so relieved when the captain came back down and relieved him and they told him what happened. But those are just some little scenarios that went on. There's so many things that happened. You just can't call them all at one time right now, but at different times it comes to mind and I kind of smile or whatever if something happened. Because, when he was on the fire department, I was trying to remember who he was on the fire department. He was a private, 21 years, those black firemen. Uh, and he got fired. I was trying to remember um, exactly what happened, but they came and brought him a letter. That was because he was always speaking up. He read his guide, his what they call the Bible there with the fire department role, responsibilities, and everything. So it was two of them. There was a William C. Carter, who was there with my husband. They went to Lemoyne College. I like to say they played on the football team, and Lemoyne had a football team.
Hmm.
But they were very outspoken because they used to having their African American teachers who nourished them through Manassas and through Lemoyne to Lemoyne. He didn't finish Lemoyne. They were drafted to the Army after 2 years there. But I had a thought I was trying to reveal.
Well, because he was speaking up, and
Yes.
yeah,
So they're gonna get rid of the troublemakers. Now African Americans are always called troublemakers. And the
if they speak
children,
up.
yes, in the classroom, there was the troublemakers in the classroom. But anyway, they presented him and my husband, that was William C. Carter, my husband, with a letter and dismissed them. And the dismissal was for interrogating another fireman. But let me tell you about this was just coming to me when they first were hired. The young little African American boys over there in the what home called the Claiborne homes,
Hmm.
right there across the street from Lemoyne Gardens,
Hmm.
and they loved to see him coming down there on that truck. So they had a fire alarm right there by Lemoyne College on the corner there, and they would run out of Lemoyne Gardens or Claiborne home and push that alarm so that truck would come down and the truck would come down there. And that happened quite a few times. So on the way back from a false alarm with the children, the little boys had run down there at Neptune and Walker to pull that alarm. Then this particular lieutenant came through he announced through the intercom across the city. Intercom for police and firemen would go across the whole city if you had that police
The police radio.
radio on, yes.
Hmm. Hmm.
And a lieutenant said that it was a false reporting, is a false alarm by some little niggas, pulling the alarm box or something. So William C. Carter, this is how they got fired. It's just coming back to me in pieces. And William C. Carter said, I am sick of you saying nigger through this intercom. If you say nigger again, I'm going to chop your head off with this axe. And that's how tough the two of them were. Now, William C. was a little tougher than my husband, but he was too. So when they got back to the fire station, they put Bill C. off and fired Bill C. And that's later on doing that. We could investigating and talking and whatever they decided to do. The chief and all of them got together, decided to do away with not do away, but to fire, dismiss William C. Carter, and they also included my husband John Cooper a letter to be dismissed. Now that scared all the other firemen, the other 8 who were left there, because we had families.
Yeah,
We had 3 children.
and that was economic lynching.
Yes, so they are afraid to talk, right?
Hmm.
And so he was off 2 years, and during that time, we were able to get um, who was that? That was working for the governor of Tennessee, and our attorney took them prono, uh, not it was the bill seat and Cooper prono to court. He was their lawyer.
Hmm. Tilt your phone back down, Representative Cooper.
Okay, is it
Losing it.
seeing now?
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
Yes. Um,
So they took the case pro bono.
Yeah, that was attorney. He lived on the Lapalone one right off of Parkway. Judge,
Sugarman?
no, it wasn't Sugarman. That was Lockett.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So he had the cases. And that's and then when I went to see the chief with my husband to find out to rebuttal that letter that was sent, a fictitious letter that was sent by somebody.
Tilt it up a little bit. We're losing your face. Tilt it back up.
Okay.
There you go. There you go.
Now,
So they were
okay.
off work for a whole 2 years with
Yes.
no money, but they were reinstated. And did they get their money back?
Yes, they did. They got back pay. The Supreme. It went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court uh, ruled in their honor, in their favor. So they did get the job back. In the meantime, when they got the job back, the NAACP files for promotions because they're not being able to get promotion. This is like 21 years.
And never
They've
been promoted.
never been promoted. None of them. They kept taking tests year after year after year, and they were saying that they weren't passing the test. So the NAACP filed that uh, lawsuit, and they were able to be promoted. So this comes into another story. So when they were promoted, all promoted from private to lieutenant. Well, the far my husband's goal was to drive one of those red cars, a captain,
Mm-hmm.
be a chief.
Mm-hmm.
They did not move William C. Carter and my husband. They made them. They just left them to be lieutenants. Would not promote them to captain, but they promoted the rest of them to captain and to
Lift your phone back
chief.
up.
Okay.
Lift your phone
This
back
is
up.
this is like that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So they promoted all the rest of them to captains and chiefs and gave them 5 houses. So there my husband was a private, 21 years, and just when the NAACP won that lawsuit, he was promoted. They had to promote it to lieutenant. In the meantime, I didn't know that my husband was. He went through that book that they had, the rule I call it the rule book or guide for them to go by, rules and regulations. He knew it backwards, and he didn't tell anybody that there was a rule in that book that stated if you remain on the fire department 30 years without a break in service, you automatically become a captain.
Really?
He kept that secret and said it to anybody. And when they promoted, when he stayed on there as a private, and when he made his 30 years, he was automatically given that promotion.
Wow.
They did not promote William C. Carter. He stayed lieutenant because he had a break in service. He had to take care of his family. He would go to Kentucky, work at Kentucky Derby. He was a master waiter at different hotels and kept his
Mhm.
family going. And he was able to get his captain, and they had to give him a firehouse. My husband got so much thrill out of being able to tell anybody who comes to the firehouse. So there was another rule. Nobody could tell you what to do in your firehouse. To tell these European American chiefs and whomever come back, get out of my firehouse. He was stationed right over there off of Winchester. I think that was Fontaine. I don't know what. I think that's the street where they have that fire station over there now. I think it was 42, if I can remember it. But those are the kinds of things that went on in between. But he tell me a lot of things. He didn't tell me at all. So,
And and
but he was going through that kind of drama and trauma, and I was carrying him through. I don't know what to at times.
that's another
The
show.
women loved him. They loved
The
him. I
women,
loved him,
the women loved him.
oh God, and he loved women.
That's another show representing.
That's how you got to be the speaker on his funeral because he was loving you too. And oh child, he's crazy about Tamara. In fact, he told me that's who I had to get for my secretary.
Really,
When I had a vacancy, yeah, he had a. They had it all, but she understood him and she loved him. I think she grieved harder than I did.
really.
It was
He
something.
was funny. He was
Yeah,
such a humorous man.
he loved people.
And you got elected state representative, and you had your own private chauffeur.
No, ma'am.
No, you were driving him,
Yes,
but he was
I got
there.
Yeah, I got tired a couple of times going when I first started
Uh-huh.
and put him under the wheel. He was driving like 30, 40, 50 miles an hour. I said, we never will get to Nashville. Get off him on his wheel. He never did get out under the wheel anymore. So they gave him a chance to have him a party sitting beside me every day,
And,
every week when we went.
and he was as well known in the
Oh,
legislature.
they thought he was a legislator.
Oh yeah, because he was there.
Yeah,
He was there every time.
yeah. He went every Monday.
He
He
had to
came
keep
back every
he had to
Thursday.
keep watch on his girl.
Yeah, and anytime we went to an annual training or anything, he was right there with me. And
Yeah,
that was our vacation, cause we had it about the vacation. He loved to go and love people. He wanted to go on vacation. We didn't have any money to go on vacation, so we were able to get some vacation money, and we had planned for this vacation. Well, the children were getting ready, the girls, to go to college.
hmm
But now you know what my priority was, don't you?
right, right, right,
Send those girls to college,
right.
no vacation. Oh, he was so mad at me. I don't know who he took on vacation, but he left there going. And I said, we got our time. I didn't know this was gonna be our vacation. So when I was, and he campaigned for me.
Well, I was going to ask you now. Shift your phone just a little. When you decided to run for state legislature, were you still teaching school, or had you retired from
I had
teaching?
retired.
You had retired from teaching,
Had
and
retired.
so when you came home and told your husband that you were going to run for state representative, what did he say?
You know,
You didn't ask
it's
him.
amazing. No, no, I didn't ask him. I just went on because he allowed me to do just what I wanted to do. Give me the money. I spent the money and tried to manage it. I was not a good manager, I don't think, but I did have some uh, skills and some sense about trying to save. I always tried to save something, but we end up going into savings. But
So move your
uh
phone just a little bit. We get about
so
half your
he
face.
so he didn't he allowed me to. I'm trying to see how this phone is going. To whenever I wanted to do, he didn't try to get up here, but he helped me. So he got the young men. I'm trying to see how come this phone is doing this. Now
Okay, there you go.
in the community to help
Tilt
me
it up a little
campaign.
bit. Tilt it
Yeah,
up some. There you go.
you've got something in your studio that's green or blue or something. But
hmm
anyway, he would get the neighborhood youngsters in the neighborhood to go out to put out the signs. He was the sign. He did all the signs, and he could really put those signs down where you can see. It's a certain way you put signs out where cars coming by, people walking are going to see that sign. I don't know. I don't know. He had that skill, but he put the sign. He put those signs out 10 years. Every 2 years, we putting out signs until I won that fifth year.
So you ran for election 4 years
Yeah, that's every other
without
year.
winning. Without
Yes.
winning, you ran 4 terms and did not win. What made you keep running, Representative Cooper? You ran a fifth time and you won the fifth time.
I guess it's just something that I had in me that I was committed. I'm not a person who'll give up. I'll keep going and keep going. And just at the fifth time that I pulled the petition, I said, I'm not going to pull the petition and wear somebody because people jumping in these races and going on. And then instead of me being in my flesh, I got some help from the person upstairs.
Mm.
And I had uh, been working long enough and going to church and that kind of thing had something to do with it, where I was listening. See, those other 3 times, I may have been listening, but I had to prepare myself.
Mm.
So those 4 times I ran, I don't think were lost. They were very, very helpful because it taught me what I needed to do, how to put the campaign together, and so forth. In fact, what I'm doing now with the voter education, Tennessee Voter Connection, a project, statewide project, we're trying to be a Stacey Abrams, I think. But
Stacey Abrams of
yeah,
Tennessee.
yes, but those what I did those years, I was putting I've developed in my mind the process. So now the Tennessee, and I'm jumping a little bit on you, the Democratic Party lady who is director has been hired as director of political affairs called me 2 weeks ago and want my model for TVC. Now, mind you, the TVC began with 6 counties complaining to me, and one of them burned my ear out for about a month, almost every day when I go to Nashville. And I said, well, something got to be done about this. If they're not getting the service that they need, I know one thing will do it. It's a long shot and a lot of work, but we need to register these folks to vote, let them know who their elected officials are. If they are not servicing them like, and when they call on them like they want them, and ignoring them and talking down to them or whatever it is they were doing, they were complaining. That lady was, our citizen was really pitiful. We gonna get them together because we gonna get them out. So we got somebody to get out. And
State
but
Representative Barbara
uh-huh.
Cooper, let me just ask you this real quick, because I want you to answer this before we go for all of those who are watching, because people feel they see Stacey Abrams, they see people like you who didn't quit, yet there's still people who are going through this just as spectators. What do you say to the people who are watching, and why is it that they should be getting involved and not just being spectators? Like, I think sometimes people think that it's not their role.
Yeah, that's a good question because I'm on a, I think, panel on Saturday to talk about engagement. How do we get engaged? We take an example quickly. The AKs, and I'm Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Come to Nashville, the Deltas, the Sigmas, the Kappas come to the Hill. This is their way of saying I'm engaged in the in the process, governmental process,
Mhm.
electoral process. They come and they have us come in and we do our little pony show and they go back home. Now that's good because sometimes they do legislators do recognize that and they do uh, pass legislation maybe that's gonna fit whatever their concerns and their issues, but it's not enough.
Tilt the
They,
phone up a
they
little
go
bit so we
they
see your
go back
face.
they go back home and they don't do anything. Take for an example, when they were talking about putting a monument in for Pitt Hyde, who is European American Jewish, and running that and giving a lot of money to the National Civil Rights Museum, they're gonna put a monument in there, and they were gonna do something else. They didn't want the union, asked me union, to have a seat on that board. And when all of that, and then they were getting ready to set it for $1. The paperwork, the document was brought to me. I just happened to have been the chairman of the Black Caucus. And I said, oh no, we can't have that. I brought it to I still had a relationship with a lot of our civil rights activists, and we called them together. And that was the only time, to kind of hit your point a little bit, that I was able to get over 100 people at the ASME Hall to organize them to stop that sale for $1 to Pitt High because he had put so many millions of dollars in there. And we had been Benjamin Hooks at the time was the chairman of the board. So just this year, that was a move by that Civil Rights Museum. And I said we got to move some people. They don't have to be moved. They came to the Secretary of State in Nashville and wanted to uh, not allow Aspen to have a seat on that board. When we negotiated back when we were picketing and marching to Washington, I mean to Nashville, to not have the museum sold. And let me just say this to Governor Bredesen. He listened to us on a couple of things. I'm telling you, a lot of stuff coming to my mind. That we were able to get that building commission made up of the governor, the speakers, and the constitutional officers to take uh, responsibility of the National Civil Rights Museum, the boilers, the big stuff, but the board would do the operation of it. Now, I know I lost my little thought on that, but we were able to meet with the community, those over 100 people. We would call, I know one name we could think of. That would be the Withers in there. And some of the legislators did come out. Some of them didn't. So there we have a lot of people back at home sitting down watching what's going on. And we only have this, we should have had more than over 100 people to meet with us every week to try to get that solved, to get the state to take over the National Civil Rights Museum instead of selling it to for $1 for to
A
pay.
dollar.
Yeah.
So, Representative Barbara Cooper, I'm going to ask you something that gets said a lot about African American leaders. That the African American community, there have been strides that have been made, but so many people get elected and then they get in the pockets, or other people get in their pockets, and it causes them to be impotent when it comes to standing up for things that are happening in the African American community.
Yes, and let's go back to that Beale Street thing that I mentioned earlier. Miss Turner taking her keys and putting off for Beale Street for nothing, and she's been on there 20 some years, serving the people, the tourists who come down there. We didn't have a lot of people involved. I was the only one leading that effort with about 15 other people in the city whom I know and respect me, and I respect them. They came and they met with me every week when I came home from Nashville on Fridays to plan our strategies with LaCimba Gray having a very good relationship with the mayor, a European American mayor, that was able to take our little threat with the 15 others that what we were going to do and get. I was getting ready to get Sharpton and all of them. They'll come out of Washington, comes from somewhere because it didn't make. She didn't have. They didn't have any reason to let her go.
Why was it they were trying to take it?
There was that. No, I know you asked me a question. I can't hardly answer it because I think you know the answer to it, and the people who are listening would know the answer to it. It was racism. Just want to get everybody African American off of Beale Street. We only have the new Daisy, old Daisy, old Daisy on Beale Street now, and they're pushing her off. Miss Catron, and I talk with her frequently because Beale Street is in the district that I represent. So I convene all these people. I convene as many of the legislators, 5 or 6 of them, to go to the mayor to tell him to allow her to keep her contract that she has. She had a 52-year when Beale Street went black. When I said black, I mean dark, and all of the business closed down. I don't know whether you remember that or not. That uh, her husband, who is deceased now, went to the federal government and the state to get funding to open up businesses for black folk again on Beale Street. And then he was able to get a 52-year agreement partnership with the city. And there are now about 10 years left. Somehow, when they that that, that what you call it, the contract, not a contract, lease.
Hmm.
Uh-huh. That lease was with the attorneys or CPAs that he had got with the city. They had the husband died fighting to get them uh, to renew their lease. They don't want to renew the lease, and she's still fighting for it. And I think she's trying to wear her down. She has an attorney, and I had legislators going to her attorney to get the whole story. Go to the mayor, and you know they haven't done anything. They haven't out yet. There are people sitting
So
at home.
Bill Street, which gets promoted as the sound, the blues, the Memphis sound, Memphis food, but they closed all the black businesses, and the two that are there, you're saying they're trying to shut
That's
them
just
down.
one. They just shut one down last year, year before last. The only club on Beale Street was run by an African American man who's been there for years. They have problems, that's true. And then you have the Tri-State Defender that's there, and then we do have the Withers Collection who's on Beale Street,
Mhm.
along with Miss Catron. They have to be giving her havoc too, because they were trying to. The mayor had her leasing contract, on his desk 6 months. I just happened to call her. She didn't call me, but we got people sitting back home right now who could mobilize and get register to vote, go vote, and come together and make a difference about what we're gonna do with Beale Street. Now, so that's Miss Withers, Mr. Withers, who's famous for his photography, and Miss Catron, who has the old Daisy, struck. And the mayor calls me and want me to support him. This is how politics works. He had the nerve to call me and
Which
ask
mayor
me
is this?
to support him, the mayor of Memphis. I told him, no, sir. I still have problems with Bill Street, Miss Catron, and why do you have Miss Withers,
Who is the mayor?
Jim Strickland,
Mayor
Mayor Jim?
Jim
Uh-huh.
Strickland called
I said,
you.
what you doing with Miss Withers leasing contract on your desk 6 months? We trying to help her. We going I said, well, I have problems. I cannot commit to supporting you. Now, suppose I'd been one of them ways that giving them $200 or whatever they give them on these campaigns. I don't have much anything in my campaign. They don't give me any. He's never given me a contribution anyway. I don't ask him for that. I'm not a good beggar, no way. But he hung that phone up, and I want to let you know the next, I don't know how long it was, a week or two or whatever it was, he signed her contract. Now, I don't know where she is right this minute. And they don't talk. Everybody's scared to talk, scared they're going to close them down because they may owe them some rent, may be late with the rent. Where the people at
Where the
home?
people?
They're not voting. And you asked, did I answer that question pretty good?
You did. And
Okay.
then, you're talking about the city where uh, Dr. King's life was taken because he's standing in the gap for poor people of all races. And we are now in this place of complacency and things happening, what you're saying, that are happening. It would look like you're back in 1953 when Negroes had to pay to vote.
Well, they taking all our culture. You got the board down there have African Americans on that board, but they working at the tune of the because we need money and funding to keep it going or whatever. But the state has it a lease, and that was the lease came up for the National Civil Rights Museum. That's why they were trying to see about that seat, saying that ASME didn't have anybody. That was another big hurdle that I had to go through. And we had some legislators who went along with that. They were getting ready to close a seat that hadn't been for the ASME union. Dr. King would have been here and probably been still living. How are you gonna close that seat down? No, ma'am. They had to read. They met, and I missed the Zoom meeting. And when I found out about it, they had to open that meeting. That was on a Friday. On that Monday, they had to rescind that vote. So I have been a lot of successful kind of things helping people. They rescinded that. I read so much saying about that, and then they want to apologize it. And the ones that on that board were going along with that. So they rescinded that, and that seat, and then the national AFL-CIO and a young lady, Gail Tyree is the director now. At that time, for 3 or 4 years, they didn't have a director, so there was nobody to go and sit on the National Civil Rights Museum. They didn't have it straight. Now, they had some problems with the union, but we got this straight now. Those, where are the people? I'm calling on folk. I can't call on anybody except you and some of the others that who always come when I call and tell them I need help. And then sometimes you have a few of them don't come, and then I get mad at them because every time they need a problem, they got want me to help them with something. They call me.
Representative Cooper, do you think that, and I believe if my information is correct, First Lady Michelle Obama is going to be one of the honorees at the National Civil Rights Museum Gala this year. I know you're excited about her coming to town.
Oh,
Do
I'm
you,
so excited, but I have to spend my time on helping my people.
I understand,
So,
but let me just ask you this one question. Do you think that the election of America's first black president lulled one group of people to sleep and woke another group of people up?
and what's the question?
Do you think the election of President Barack Obama, America's first black president, put a lot of black folks to sleep and then woke up another group of people who
Oh,
said,
of course they did. So they said, well, if you can elect African Americans, we can elect anybody. We can go down to the dog catchers and put a dog in the president in the White House. That's what's happened. So
so
that
what is it that, I mean, because the election of a president is truly just one position. And there's all the local stuff that has to be taken care of. And do you think people just misread that America, his mantra was change, that change has come. And as you listen to that, and as you're still going through what you're going through, what are your thoughts on change in America?
you know we are just such a naive kind of a people, I would think, is that to think that we had a president, he was going to do all that changing for us because he's there. It was just so much. It's just so much he can do as the president. He did a lot. It was that he could do and get away with. He tried. He did something. But do you know Tennessee is still not serving 300,000 people on health care? Cause it's called Obamacare. If you say Obamacare up there in Nashville, and I present any kind of legislation that's relative to that thing, I can't get it passed. I can't get a motion from the committee because the committees are made up of majority Republicans, and we only have 26 Democrats in the House. So we have one committee that we don't have anybody, a Democrat on that, to second my motion. So I had a bill that I introduced. I didn't get a second, so it died for lack of a second because we didn't have enough Democrats to put two on there. I got the motion because there was a Democrat on the committee. And I was just thinking just the other day, looking at that, our people don't understand how government is working. We elect these governors. We elect the president. But then when you do that, they appoint their people in place. The governor of Tennessee, Governor Lee, right now has the Republican Party caucus elects their speaker
Mm-hmm.
in the Senate, in the House, and the Republican in the Senate. So we're a red state. So the governor works with those two speakers in the House and the Senate. The governor appoints Republicans to be over head of education, head of health, head of corrections. That's another one. Uh, Head of environment. Most of them are Republicans. If they're Democrats, he finds some way within those 4 years or 8 years, if he's able to stay there, to make sure he put a Republican in place to carry on his agenda. So then we get down to the legislators who are, who are what they call crossing the aisle or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that too much. They cross the aisle. I'll ask them for support for my bills. So that means I'm not as successful as some because they good at crossing the aisle. But then crossing the aisle, coming back, they're gonna try to ask you to do something that is against your people, like like voting rights right now.
Mm-hmm.
You have some, and maybe have some Democrats who have been crossing the aisle or whatever. But that's change. We don't change anything unless they say all politics is local.
Mm-hmm.
You better get somebody, not your cousin, your friend, your whatever it is you have. You better get somebody who is going to serve the community and somebody who is intelligent, who has integrity, who knows how to present themselves. Character. Please have character. We just so happen to have one of our fine senators on trial right now in Memphis, having a business of some kind of healthcare or school or whatever it was. And the money was, what do you call it? The money is, you can't intertwine the money, intertwine it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of that word for nothing. You have to have a separate bank account or a line item. You
Mm-hmm.
can use federal money and buy your court or one of those Mercedes or whatever, or clothes or house or go on trips. So that's what she's being held for on trial right now.
Who is that?
That is Miss Senator Katrina, fine young lady, Katrina Robinson.
Okay.
So,
Tilt
and
your
on
phone,
the
tilt your
news
phone
is
back
saying
up.
that she's facing 20 years.
Tilt
So
your phone back up, Representative Cooper.
can you see me now? I don't
Turn
know what I don't know what I
right
do.
there, right there, just right there. Don't move
Okay,
it. Don't move it.
okay. So those are the kinds of things that
Commingling.
nobody's
Commingling.
going down to court with her.
Dr. Royal Colbert is watching and he said it's commingling funds.
That's it. Co-mingling. That's right. And I should remember that
Doctor,
because I've had that register of elections to call me in one time. It scared me to death.
they
I
thought
never
you were
get
commingling.
co-ming. Well, I wasn't called co-mingling. It just I couldn't get that. Couldn't understand that. I just couldn't understand that process too much. And you have to keep strict records with receipts. Now I'm the worst one keeping up with receipts, little bitty receipts.
Look,
Gas.
Representative Cooper, let me just ask you this. You're 92 years old. You're watching all of these things that have happened during your lifetime. How much ground do you think we've lost over the last few years? And what is your hope
Well, I know
for your
that.
people?
Okay, thanks for that question. Uh, I know that there are not of not a lot, but enough, a song, not enough, who are fighting for us to maintain and protect our voting rights.
Tilt
We
your
have
phone back up. This is too
now. How did
serious.
we?
We want to see your face. We want to see your face, Representative Cooper.
Okay.
This is serious. Scoot it over a little bit. That's it. Tilt it up. Now
Now
hold it
how
right.
about that?
That's perfect. Because
Okay,
you're
good.
talking about something important.
Yeah,
So the vote these
we
voting
have
rights.
gone. Listen, for them to put these restrictive laws in place for voting, that's worse than I think as bad, if not worse, than poll taxes. Why are they trying to keep people from voting when we ought to be encouraging people to vote? Not necessarily telling them how to vote and who to vote for, although I get quite a few calls. Who is it in the people don't know our people sometimes don't know where to go, the locations. Instead of putting places, making it easier, they're making it worse. Is that compared to when I was coming up and we knew we were segregated, we didn't know we were poor. We're getting worse with our intelligence, with so many people. Well, as I look at MSNBC, I'm so excited when I see all these African Americans up there in position, mayors and governors and senators and so forth. And I like to throw out a real plug to our honorable special advisor, Cedric, um, in the White House. He's a special advisor to the President Biden, and the director of the White House engagement,
Mm.
uh, of civic engagement. I might have messed that up,
Hmm.
but anyway, he did speak at our Tennessee voters connection that we're working on now, on that project to get these folk out to vote. We have as our goal with as a 200,000 new voters, and we're gonna pull these other inactive voters out. But I think we're in worse shape eh, based on the time that we're in, the education that we have, 2021. And it was something else that I wanted to point out after that. But we're just going to have to go to work. Too many people are sitting back, waiting on a few people to solve their problems. And you see how how government is organized. If the governor doesn't want a bill, I had a bill on broadband because in the district, we don't have internet in one part of the district. It's bad. Reception is very, very bad. But because the federal government, the governor's going to have a special program on this broadband, they wouldn't pass my bill. I couldn't get a motion a second on it. So I got a motion a second, but I didn't get into discussion. They waiting on the governor to come up with the federal money, but they don't want to take federal money to have health care for our people. And if any money is given out, like sickle cell, $50,000, no money to give uh, an agency that's serving the total Tennessee.
So $50,000 is sickle cell, but they turned down all of the Obamacare money.
Yeah, but I think when I think Fred Jones with the Southern Heritage Classic
Hmm.
received $150,000. That's directed toward any African American, just African American ownership business. That's what we got this year out of the what $20 billion budget.
And
I think I'm remembering that
salutes
right.
to Fred Jones. The Heritage Classic brings a whole lot of money to Memphis and Shelby County. It is, if not the largest event that happens, and to say, and it's a football game.
Oh, but let me tell you this before you go. Uh, about TSU.
What about
You
you?
know, when I was chairman of the Black Caucus,
Uh-huh.
someone brought the problem to me that Tennessee State was not getting the land grant money. I don't know whether you remember that or not. We're talking about it. So
Yes.
I give kudos to Bredesen again. When they brought it to me, what they wanted to do was give Tennessee State uh, $1 million. And by the rules and regulations from the federal government, they were due $4 million with a match. The state house did not want to match that federal money, so TSU could get all of their land grant money. Now I hope you know what the land grant is. It'll take a little bit to say that. It's a
Yeah, I
uh,
do. I do.
yeah, it was
But let me
passed.
just, for real quick though. So University of Tennessee, Knoxville, Martin, were they
No,
getting
no,
their money?
University of Tennessee. I guess they were divided between the other
Right. But
UTs, but
University,
UT in Knoxville
how much were
was.
they getting?
We don't know what they were getting. Their match with them. There's was only two. Now UT was getting their match. Tennessee didn't get theirs for 100 years, and that's when I, as the
Wait.
chairman of Black Caucus,
Tennessee State University was not getting their money for 100 years.
yes. So we opened it up. Bredesen gave them all of that money that year, including the agriculture. What they're doing, they were just patching here and there the money funding to try to keep that agriculture open, and whatever the land grant money was for, trying to take what you say, steal it from Paul, they pay Peter from Paul or whatever.
Hmm.
And so when Harold Love in Nashville, and I had Miss Glenda Brenda 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 Gilmore, who helped me when I was on that Black Caucus. Harold Moore came in. I told him what the problem was, that I'm in Memphis. I can't keep up with what's going on at TSU and the land grant money, and told him the whole story. He took it up. It took him from 2007 to this year to get that task force going. It was established last year. Do you know that the state owes Tennessee State 500, probably more than that, $500,000.
No, it's
No,
got to
no,
be more.
five hundred
500
million dollars.
million. 500
It's
million.
million. I'm sorry, million.
What?
$500 million,
What?
and they got right now. What they're doing is that I don't know how Representative Love did it, but he cut through the aisle. What you say, cross the aisle?
Cross the aisle.
And he crossed. Somebody did cut some deal somewhere to get that out. Now they're trying to find out how they're going to spend the money. Where is the alumni? I just talked to one of the senior members of TSU alumni in Memphis and Shelby County Alumni Association for TSU. Said, y'all better get busy and get up there, get together and organize across the state and get up there and help them to help that president up there, Miss Dr. Glenda, beautiful person, really smart with 3 or 4 PhDs. They can't do nothing to bother her up there, and help her figure out what they need to do for this before some of them decide how they gonna give the money, when they gonna give it, and how much. That where are the people? So I'm trying to get that alumni together right now. I got to call that man, reminding me to call him to see. They
Well,
meet.
you know what? You
Hmm.
know what? It's amazing. I mean, here's $500 million, and somebody win $50,000, and all the kin folks come out of the woodworks for that. But $500 million, all of the people who have graduated from Tennessee State over the years, that is baffling.
And then, but I'm gonna end on this because I know you have to go. I'm gonna talk about my people too. Now I'm talking about. I try to be fair. Some of the same people I'm talking about gotta go, sitting on the board of regents. When those people who sat at the counters left the colleges, those are the college students, and sat at the counters, they were dismissed from school. You know that with racism going on, and so the idea has come up from somebody at TSU or in Nashville in the county to give them honorary degrees. We have African Americans sitting on that board of regents who didn't vote for it. I'm sitting up the chairman of the Black Hole. I said, "Oh no, I'm ready to raise some havoc on it." We had a meeting, and they still didn't want to do that. But bless her heart, our senator who is deceased for I think it was last year, Senator Harper, pointed her finger at him, and they brought in 2 European American board members from the college board, and the other. I said, "Do you know how you got appointed to that, and why we voted on you to be on that board? Is for you to help these European American board members understand African Americans, the plight that we're on, and the things that we need to get done. and help us rather than vote down a seat for the Ask Me Union off of a National Civil Rights Museum, try to keep them from having a place on that board and having these people who left school to integrate better for everybody, not just African Americans. And you gonna vote against them having that little honorary degree, and half of them are dead, 70 or 80 years old. How's it gonna hurt?
Right.
But
And
he
a
can't.
black person voted against that?
Yeah,
What?
they and still doing havoc, sitting on about 5 boards in Memphis, stopping everything.
Who
And
is
that's
it?
the problems we. I'm not calling on that name.
Well, you can tell me
I've
when
been
we get
calling
off here.
everybody else's name, but I will tell you.
Okay, we'll talk about
Uh-huh.
that
And
after.
and it's not just me.
Google
There
it.
are other people watching it. Where are the people rising up? They just need. You talking about impeaching today? Those are folk we need to be impeaching, and we need to let the legislators know. Do not vote for them no more. Now we were able to get rid of him for a term, but he cried like a baby. He's sitting on all these boards. Big a council for a big hospital here. It doesn't make sense.
Lord
I
Jesus.
told him he knows how I feel because he's the
Well, I
one,
tell you what.
and that's part of our problem too.
Yeah.
Crossing it out.
As what's that song we used to sing at church? Zion, Zion. What's the matter, Zion?
Yeah, and they know who to choose to put on these boards so they can go along with the Republican Party. I'll go along with something that's not right for everybody.
Listen, 92-year-old Representative Barbara Cooper, I thank you so much. And I know that we can talk another 3-4 hours because you are a wealth of knowledge, wealth of information. I thank everybody for watching you tonight. Regina Williams says 92 years, what a blessing. She is articulate and knowledgeable. By George, she is alumni Tennessee State University, a tiger, right?
Yeah, they trained me. My
And
black
Tanja,
history, my black history teacher in Tennessee State wrote the book, so I have have a lot of information that I've forgotten.
well, you are carrying a bunch of it tonight, and we
What
thank
would
you
I
for
do
sharing.
without you? Now you step into my life and made it, as you said, the good. What's that? John Lewis says, good what
Good, good trouble.
trouble. Yeah, just have to reinforce my good trouble. And they know how I am up there, so they stay away from me. My folk looking like me. I don't care. One or two of them will call and keep me up on what's going on, but I keep up anyway because my constituents get it before they get it, and they call me anyway.
Tanya McEwen said, Representative Cooper, thank you for your service and that this interview was very informative. Thank you all so much for watching.
Thank you. I hope you recorded it and send it back to me.
It is recorded. You can watch me.
I integrated this credit union over there. Memphis area. Not me by myself, but 3 or 4 of us got together, find some like minds, and integrated that because they were denying the cafeteria workers and the building engineers and the janitors loans to purchase cars to get to work. Come on now. And I got elected as a credit committee. I was just signing everybody up, buying everybody cars. I enjoyed that one. I almost forgot that.
That's huge.
It is.
Dr. Royal Colbert, when you were mentioned about how we are sometimes participating in the things against ourselves, he said that it hinges on the looking glass self. We began we begin to see ourselves as others do, and then believe the lie that we are inferior to whites. This is as far from the truth as it ever was.
You're just eloquent, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh my goodness. It's an honor. And I do want you to come back. Best of luck to you all on your efforts to get people not just registered, but those who are registered, getting them to the polls. Thank you for being an example to us as women, to us as African American women, in the things that you have accomplished. You turned the community into your classroom. You retired from the schools and you decided to make the whole community your classroom. We salute you, Representative Barbara Cooper. We thank you for teaching us, and we pray God's blessings on you, that he will continue to strengthen you and keep you sharp. We love you.
Thank you, and you continue to do the good work.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Everybody, thank you all so much for watching this very special edition with
Let
State
me know what the
Representative.
comments are behind some of these, please.
I will. I will.
Mm-hmm.
So far, it's all good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it is. It is. State Representative Barbara Cooper, the Tennessee State Representative for District 686.
Yes.
Been there for 24 years and still going strong. I encourage you all to get involved in your local communities, because if you're not going to be the voice, then who will? I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast. Remember, there is healing at the well. Make it a great moment. And remember, peace takes practice. Get some peace practice in.